Okay, good morning all. Today I have Roberta O'Day with me, and Roberta is a hypnotherapist at the Seddon Hypnotherapy Centre. Now, Roberta specialises in a number of areas, including mindfulness meditation, weight loss, quit smoking and depression. So, Roberta, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Michael.
That's good, good. And you're sitting in your room, your therapist?
This is my practice room. Yeah.
Yeah, I've sat in there a number of times, so Roberta helped me lose 20 kilos of weight. So that was an excellent effort, Roberta.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay, we had a little interruption there from my kids, which we'll see how we go, and we're back on deck again. And so, Roberta, where I got up to was after introducing you and indicating that you've used me to lose 20 kilos of weight, which I've kept off. Thank you very much. Thanks to your hypnotherapy. The other thing is Roberta's also a member of my business group that meets well, normally would meet at Williamstown, but we're currently meeting via Zoom. And so Roberta's built up quite a successful business in the hypnotherapy space. But Roberta, I wanted to know just a little bit about you and your chosen career, and what made you decide to go into the hypnotherapy space?
Well, I think I always wanted to be a social worker. When I was growing up, that was what I wanted to do. But when I left school, you had to be 19 to actually be eligible to go to university to do the social worker degree. And so I just put it aside and never went back to it. But later on in life, when I was looking to get back into the workforce after having a family, by chance I got into community services. I started working with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence. And so I was working with people who had huge emotional, physical, mental problems. You know, they were long-term unemployed people, some of them who were using either drugs, alcohol, whatever, to mitigate how they felt. And I worked in that field for over 20 years, probably 25 years, in various programs, government programs. And I saw that these people had no chance of overturning the barriers without being able to make a really big shift. And if you could get them into work and keep them there, sometimes they could do it, but mostly they struggled. They would keep going back to the behaviours that were not useful. And ultimately, when I finished work, I needed something to do, and I was always intrigued by hypnosis. And so I thought, I'll just go and train in it and see how I go. More for me to clean up some of the stuff that I'd picked up over the years. So I did a lot of work on me, and then ultimately I went, it worked for me, it worked on me. So I thought maybe I can help other people to make those changes that they couldn't make consciously. So a conscious change is not lasting because you've got all these memories, all these behaviours, learned behaviours that are stored and that are triggered by normal events that come up in your life. And when you haven't dealt with something, when you haven't addressed it or changed it, it'll keep coming up until you do. And you can't change these behaviours consciously. You've got to do it unconsciously. And most people don't understand that. They know they can't change it, but they keep trying to do it consciously. Ultimately, they will come to someone like me because they accept they can't do it consciously. And most times I can help them. Not always, though. There are some people who cannot trust enough to go there. So, but I can help a lot of people.
really impressive, and it's really interesting that that's your background, is where you've come from. So if you had to pick out one really important thing that you've learned along the way, what would it be?
That everything that you hold is just a story. It's not happening now. But when you bring the memory back and run it again, your body, your mind thinks it is. And so it responds to what you're running emotionally. The neuroplasticity within your body convinces your body that it's happening now. So I would say it's just a story, and where I used to feel like I couldn't let people really know who I was, I eventually understood that it didn't matter. It didn't give a rat's. That if I wanted to be free of the things I was holding on to, then I had to be brave enough to just go, I don't care, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a fascinating background. And is there anything that a book or an author or training program, something that you would strongly recommend to someone who's going into business?
I would say that for me, I think I just did so much training initially, in the work to try and give myself the confidence to be able to believe that I could help anyone. But secondly, to believe that I could have a business, that I could run a business, that at my age I could suddenly create a business and it would be successful and I could support myself on it. That sort of was just amusing to me, really, but it's worked out that I can do that. And my kids, I think the thing that I love about it the most is my kids, who thought I was really nuts to do it and went, oh, Mum, that I would go and do this. They've all gone, we're really proud of you, of what you've done. And at your age to have gone out and done that. And I smile to myself, because I think what I've shown them is nothing's impossible. You can do anything you want to do. And you can determine how big or how small it is that you want to create. So I think for my daughters in particular, I sort of go, it's a really good thing for them to observe, to see, and it makes them look at their life differently.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating, isn't it? I think that you could unpack that at a number of levels, I'm guessing, over time. If we were sitting down doing this over a Zoom lunch, you could probably keep expanding on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were looking back now and you were looking back at your life, so it's not just your business career, but your life, and you said, what's one bit of advice that you would like to give your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
Yeah, I was brought up in a very middle-class family, in a very safe environment, very protected, and really boxed in around what I could do. I mean, I was told I could do anything, but I wasn't really free to do anything, and I knew it. And if I could look back at that 10-year-old, I'd go, just get out of that box straight away, right now. Don't muck around, do it. Because I would have done so many more things at an earlier age. Now, when I look at it, I go, you could have done so much more if you'd have just got out of that straitjacket earlier. But then I wouldn't have learned all the things that I learned. I wouldn't have had to overcome all the barriers that I had to overcome. And so I can help people who haven't been able to do that, particularly women who really get locked into expectations, so I can actually help them break free of that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, isn't it? I think we've all experienced the box or the paradigms that you operate within the family, and I think they're very strong influences, both good and bad. Yeah. Very, very useful. And so I'm just going to move on to a couple of different questions to finish this off. Firstly, and I'm guessing, I think I know the answer to these, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Firstly, have you had to ever borrow any money for your business to get yourself started?
No, not for my business, because I operate out of my home and I own my own home. So no, I didn't. But I did have to borrow money when I began my work life, right in middle age. I had nothing, absolutely not one skerrick of anything, and I got the job at the Brotherhood, and so I'm a good saver. I'm a very good saver, and so I started saving my money, and I was not on a big salary, quite a small one actually, but I still saved money, and I went to the bank because my brother said to me, "You need to buy a house," and I went, "Oh." That seemed like, oh, could I do that? Anyway, I went to the bank. I banked with this bank all my life. Which one? I'll leave that up to you. Anyway, I had banked with them all my life, and I went to them, and I needed to borrow. I'd saved. I had about $30,000 in savings, and I needed to borrow another $50,000 to be able to buy this house that I had in mind, which was a little Victorian house in Footscray. It was $90,000, and they wouldn't lend me that $50,000. And so I accepted that and went, "Oh, that's disappointing." And my brother said to me, "Don't accept that." He said, "Go check around, see if you can get it somewhere else." So I went to the other banks. No, couldn't get that. And then someone said to me, "Go and check with the union. They might lend it to you." So I went to the union, and they said, "Of course." And so they lent me the money to buy my first house. Wow. And then about 12 months, 2 years later, I don't know how I met this guy, but this guy came along and said to me, and by that time I'd gone up in the world and I had a much more responsible job and a lot more money. And he said to me, "You've got too much money and you're not using it well." And so he did this analysis, and he said, "You could afford to buy an investment property." And I went, "Oh God." 1 minute I couldn't get any money, and the next minute someone's telling me I should buy an investment property. And so he showed me how I could. And I said, "But I won't have any money. I've got no buffer there." And he said, "You've got $50 a week. That's enough." And I went, "Ah." Anyway, I bought the investment property. And then I had this huge loan. I'd almost paid off the Footscray house, and then I had this huge loan. And then I bought another one. And then I bought another one. And then I had all these houses. And then I suddenly went, because I did it without any advice, and I suddenly went, what would happen if I had an accident? And then I thought, oh, I have to start selling these houses. I can't do it. This is too big a load. And a friend said to me later, all you needed was risk insurance. That's all you needed, or to insure your salary, you know. So, but anyway, I didn't. So I started selling the houses, but then I was able to buy this house outright. So no. So I understand what it's like to have money that you owe, that you're managing, and all the implications of that. Because I was servicing loans on 4 houses at one stage. Wow. So, yeah.
That puts you, I don't know if you know, Roberta, but that would have put you in the top 1% of Australians in terms of people who own investment properties.
It was all too much for me, Michael. I was like, oh. It was really scary.
And I think that's the thing is, and you touched on it briefly there, is having a good team of advisors around you, not just from the money point of view, but also from the other aspects of risk minimisation.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing to have all those people as part of your team.
That's right. And I didn't go down that. That never came up. So like a lot of other things came up, but that didn't come up. And I think probably if that had come up, I would have continued to do what I was doing and felt quite safe about that, because I would have seen I had a gap. You know, I had access to money if something happened, to make a decision on how I wanted to move forward. But yeah, that didn't arise. So yeah, so I have done that, and I did that for probably 10 to 15 years. I managed all of that, you know, the mortgage and all the rest. And, you know, I wouldn't have my house if I didn't do that.
Yeah, so it had a good outcome for you at the end.
Yeah.
All right, so you live in Seddon. Now, just a couple of things about Seddon. A lot of people probably don't know Seddon, but it sits, if I'm just geographically, for those who don't know, it's in the western side of Melbourne. It's sitting between Footscray on one side, Yarraville, and the Westgate Freeway would be a bit further down on the other side. And it's a little suburb, but full of nice looking little homes, of which yours is one. Very, very, very cute little home. But what's some of the gems in the Seddon area that you reckon make it such a lovely place to live in?
Well, it's changed. You know, when I first came here, it was a lot of older people, and now there's young ones have all moved back into the area. So when you go down to the local shops, they're young couples with little ones, little children, or young couples who got a dog but haven't had children yet. So the demographic is changing. They're all the people who realised that the West was much better value than any other area of Melbourne, because you know, my first house in Footscray was $90,000. To get a similar house that close to the city, within 7 minutes of the city, I would have paid $800,000 to $1 million right back then. You know, so that was incredible value, because Footscray didn't have a good reputation, and by inference, neither did Seddon, because it was just across the road. So there were a lot of initially there were a lot of migrants in Seddon, mainly Macedonian. It was very much a Macedonian suburb, and there's a big Macedonian church in Victoria Street, and there are a lot of Macedonian people who live within the suburb, certainly around me. It's got a really nice little shopping centre, so really good food, organic, beautiful bread shop, lots of variety in the shops, lots of little restaurants, and it's a real community sort of suburb. You get the sense of community within it. So it's close to the university, it's close to the station, close to transport, it's close to the Footscray market. There's a lot of construction going on in Footscray, in Seddon, in Yarraville, yeah, and of course you've got the tunnel happening as well. So yeah, that would be my take on the suburb.
Well, thanks very much, Roberta. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And yeah, I'm going to have trouble if I have to edit this down, because I think it's got a lot of good content there. So it may be that people just have to listen all the way through. So I'm just going to pause it now. So I'll pause the recording and say thank you so much for being a part of this program, and telling me a little bit about your story and your ventures into business. So thank you again.
Yes. The only thing we didn't do, Michael, was BI.